Hi to all the listeners. Welcome to our new episode of Macaf Podcast. Today I'm with Julian. How are you, Julian?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So can you introduce yourself shortly? Where are you from? What are you doing?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a software engineer, mainly front end. I'm working for Orange, which is an international telecommunications company, mostly based in France, and I'm living in Paris, France too.
Nice. Okay, you said that you are mostly front-end developer. What are the technologies that you use?
A few years back, I was using mainly C++ for embedded development in STBs, so set-top boxes for TV and stuff. And more recently, I'd say 5 years ago, I've started developing it for the web mostly.
Wow, interesting. Interesting changing. Okay, so let's go to the start. We want to hear your story, how you connected to the open source world. So do you remember what was your beginning?
Yeah. I think I first started to hear about open source when I studied at the beginning of my studies, because we used stuff like Unix, Linux, etc. So obviously we got introduced to the world of open source as user first of all. So
Hmm.
for me, open source was basically using free stuff, and it was cool. And when I joined Orange as a trainee first, I was working on web services. It was Apache modules in C, C++. So we
Mm.
were using a lot of open source projects, but I studied some stuff around Axis 2C and a new project called Stuff at the time, and we found some issues by using this library, if I can call it so, this tool. So this is when I entered first into the world of open source, because I started to find some existing issues, because it was a small library, so I wasn't able to find information, Stack Overflow on Google, etc. So I stumbled upon the issues of the repository itself and started and created some issues. So this was my first
Mm.
step, connecting to an open source project, so creating issues as contributions.
Okay, so it was part of your job. It wasn't
Yeah,
something that
exactly.
you did voluntarily. Ah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it could be the classic way to get to open source when you use something and then it doesn't work like what you want, so you have to do something.
Yeah. You find
Uh,
a minor bug or something, and you have no explanation. You dig a little bit into the source code, and you are for sure that it is an issue on their side, on the project side. So because it can be frightening first to create an issue. So when you are sure about it, you create your first issue and you wait patiently to have an answer and maybe a fix.
and still, I think it's not so obvious because there's someone guide you that this is what you should do. Because I think sometimes developers use something, but they don't have the mindset of I should open an issue about it, and they're more okay. If it doesn't work, I'll try to find another solution or thing or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't really obvious at first, but so the usage of the library was you get the code, you compile it yourself because it's C, C++. So
Mhm.
I was already using the repository to get the code, and it wasn't that obvious that I could create issues at first. But when I was completely stuck with my use case, I saw other issues, and I said, okay, why not? Let's try that, because I don't have any other solutions.
Mm. Okay, cool. So, how did it get from there on? You wrote the issue, eventually you wrote the PR for them, or someone else fixed it?
No, no. I just created the issue, and within the issue, I suggested some patch, because I tried something, because I could get the code, modify it, and test something. So I was exactly sure that it was an issue. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
wouldn't create the issue, because I was maybe frightened by it. So it was sure it was an issue. I suggested the patch, but I haven't created a PR. but it wasn't stored on GitHub back then because it was in, I don't know, 2012, something like that. It was on Google. I don't remember which space, but you were able to store some open source code on Google. Maybe it was code.google.com, something like that. I'm not even sure you could create PR, merge requests, and so on.
Wow. It's all days before
Yeah.
the GitHub we know today. Yeah, things are
Exactly.
changing quickly.
Exactly.
Nice. So uh, when you did this, so you felt that you are starting to understand how it's working, and that you are more confident of getting into other projects?
So I had few interaction with this project, and then I move on to developing for the set-top boxes at Orange, so the TV world. And I had other interactions with open source based on the framework that we used back then, which is Qt, the Qt framework, which is a C++ framework, which is open source. And so we were using it normally. And then we found at some point a bug inside the framework. So it was difficult to know if it was a bug or not. So we created an issue as well in the tracker. Still, it wasn't on GitHub. It was on a private tracker or stuff like that. And this time we created a pull request in order to modify the code. So this was my actual first interaction as a developer, suggesting some code to a big repository. So yeah, it was a bit difficult because we suggested a patch, and obviously we didn't suggest some unit testing coming with the patch. So the first interaction was we cannot merge that. You need to create all those unit tests, etc. So yeah, first interaction, a bit cold, but interesting. And yeah, we managed to fix that bug a few weeks after. But yeah, first interaction as a developer suggesting code.
And also in the repos that you mentioned, was it repos of companies or of volunteers that wrote the code there?
Yeah, it is.
What was the community?
It is the Qt framework, and it is also a company. So the licensing back then was I don't know, GPL, I think. Now it's LGPL, but all the source code was open. You could contribute, but the main things within the framework was developed by the company itself.
Yeah. So my question is there a kind of different feeling? Maybe also if in the future you were involved in the more community open source projects, and is it different to connect to a project that is maintained by a company or by a community, if you have any experience with that?
Yeah, I think it is a bit different because you're here only to suggest a patch, or it is rather a one-shot thing, because you suggest your patch, maybe it's going to be merged, maybe it's not going to be merged, and that's it. You go back to your product. It's not a real community behind this. You cannot expect being part of this company or the maintainers, etc. So I think this is really different from a community aspect as you can have in your community, or big open source projects with a real community of people doing that on their spare time, which is really different.
Yeah, I must say that it's not always people that are doing things in their spare time. Sometimes it's have a core team that it is a job, but still they have a community and they are open to contributions. So eventually, do you feel that you're connected to open source communities, or what was your next steps, and also what was your thought? Let's start with that. What was your thought about open source as an opportunity and as a way of coding and culture of open source or things like that? Did you start to feel that it's not just because you can be a programmer and then, okay, there was a problem in open source repo, I send a patch, and I don't, I don't care about it. It's just something small I did in my work, or you felt that it's something bigger than that?
At this time of my road to open source, it was just I found something, I'm gonna fix it, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even realize at the time that they could be a potential of a community. You know, for me, it
Mm-hmm.
was it's maintained by people. They know what they are doing, and they have a small bug. I can fix it because I'm lucky to find that, but that's their job, and this is not mine.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, this was what I felt, that it was too complicated for me to be connected to those people because they are really, really smart, something
Wow.
like that.
Okay.
I got this
Yeah.
feeling from the outside. Yeah, they know what they're doing, and I'm just here because I found a tiny bug somewhere, and it's not that important.
Okay. So eventually it changed the feeling.
And not for this project. It changed after that because I was involved in other projects with a more active community, and it was not linked necessarily to a company. But yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
changed after that.
So do you remember the more when it changed? Because I think it's really a kind of a jump to in the mindset. If you feel part of a community and that you're not just fixing a small bag, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
really part of a community and a team.
I first felt that not really in open source, but in inner source. So
Mm,
mostly stuff reusable in the company. So you have a small community, but those are people that you are in your safe zone, etc. But then when I started to contribute to Bootstrap, I saw that there was a real community behind the product, and I could feel it because the answers in the issues, the pull request, etc., were different.
mhm. So Bootstrap was the first time you contribute to open source project with a community.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So first, it was through. I'm gonna try to explain that clearly. At Orange, we have a fork of Bootstrap for
mm,
our web framework. So
mhm.
basically, it's the same code with some Orange customization. So first, I contributed to Boosted, so the Orange version.
Okay.
After that, I began to be the maintainer of this library, this framework. And since we are gathering commits from Bootstrap, really early on in the process to deliver our web framework, we are some kind of alpha testers of Bootstrap. So we were able to report some bugs before everyone else. So I've created tons of bugs, some pull requests, tiny first, tiny issues, etc. And issues by issues, pull request by pull request, I started to feel like being in this community. And they, after some times, maybe 1 year, I've been recruited to be maintainer of Bootstrap too.
Mm,
That's
nice.
the basic story. It's all little step by little step, tiny
Yeah,
issues, etc.
it's it's a good way to advance. And so, if I understand, you just you you started internal in inside Orange. It
Yeah.
was just your job, and then you find out it's get to be that the project of Orange is connected to Bootstrap. That it's an open source, and okay, and then. Uh, Did you have the feeling that now that you are inside Bootstrap, as so you can understand all other projects of open source projects with community and things like that, and more connected to the culture and vibe of open source? Oh.
Yeah, I've managed to contribute to other open source projects, but again, small, tiny bugs here and there. But I saw that maybe in the Discord space, etc., the community are handled and are totally different. If you're talking about Bootstrap, you have the core team, but we don't communicate too much with the users because there are tons of users and it's
Mm-hmm.
impossible to manage. but I participated a little bit to Astro and Starlight, that are recent projects for the web, and the community is really active. It's really impressive, and you have a warm welcome when you are there. You have congratulations when you create some stuff, etc. It's really nice to see a different aspect of the same kind of community. Actually, you can see that also in Storybook, stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of communities that are different in their own way, but really interesting to see that.
Nice. So, and do you have the time to contribute to open source in your free time after the job hours?
Yeah.
How you manage?
So mainly the job that I do for Bootstrap is outside the range because I don't have too much time to work on it within my office hours. So my spare time, part of it is dedicated to Bootstrap. And when I use other products and I see some issues or something that I can improve, I contribute to, but not as massively, I would say, as for Bootstrap. And I've also some tiny side project on my own that are open source too.
So how do you manage it? I have the feeling that if someone is coding for his job 9 hours a day or 8 hours a day, and um, and then to ask him to also contribute to open source, it's not an easy thing. Like you feel that you are very enthusiastic to coding, and it's your hobby and not only your job.
Yeah,
So
it's a bit difficult to find a work open source life balance, because as you said, you have your office hours almost 8 hours a day, so you need to find some tiny spots where you can code, but you also want your life to happen. So sometimes it's before the work, 1 hour there, before it's during the lunch break, or really during the night. Sometimes, I don't know, you find 1 hour here
mhm.
and there to contribute. But I know that some companies can have some free hours to contribute to open source. For example, I don't know, 10%, 5% of the real
Yeah.
office hours. And to be honest, would be great to have that, because sometimes it's difficult to find time on your spare time to contribute, and also to maintain. Maintaining is really the hard part when you have a big project.
Can you give examples of what you do as a maintainer in a big project?
Yeah, so basically every day when you wake up, you have issues created, discussions, etc. So this is kind of the first task you have to do before maintaining really the project. So if you want to add some patches, features, etc., that's on top of everything. So that's why it can be difficult if the core team is not big enough.
How do you manage the issues in a like in Bootstrap? I'm sure that they have a lot of issues. Sometimes people write issues that is not relevant, and you
Yeah.
you need to understand what is going on.
Yeah. So we try to have some automatic jobs in order to treat some issues. So first of all, I read the issue. In the template of the issues, we suggest to create a reproducible environment. So if it isn't done, I'm gonna add a label in GitHub. So needs example. This is the name of the label. And then you have a tiny robot creating a comment in the issue. And if someone doesn't answer in, I don't know, 7 or 14 days, the issue will be automatically closed. So automation is really important. On my side, if the issues are really tiny and I can understand them because the description is accurate and I know the fix is really small, I'm going to do it right now.
Ah,
Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. But because I know that we have tons of issues and features to develop right now, so if I don't do it right now, it's going to be in a few weeks, months, I don't know.
okay.
So to be respectful toward the people creating the issue, if I can do it, I do it right now. Otherwise, I know it's going to be
Yeah.
in few months it happens.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
basically that's how I handle it on my side.
Nice. And I have more global question now after what we said right now. Um, that I think because open source many times even open issues is kind of voluntary thing, and uh, it's kind of a challenge that I also have in my community in Israel and Markov that you mentioned automation, and the problem is that you have a lot of noise. Like when someone wants and they have the motivation to contribute and be part of the community, uh, you need to find the people that eventually will be enough serious to do it and not just speak with you and then okay, it's too hard for me, or I don't know, oh, they don't have the time, or I don't know what. So, uh, do you feel that you have this challenge in the open source world that uh, you need to filter and find the right people or the right ways to be efficient when it's not that you pay someone and he must do for you something. You need to be very efficient, but in a different way than the business world.
Yeah. You're right. There is a lot of noise. I know that you have a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm gonna do it. Please assign the issue to me. I'm gonna do it right now, etc." So in Bootstrap, we've written in the contributing guidelines that we never assign issues because we never know who will be available. Maybe if someone will pick up the issue and never do the actual code, it's going to be stuck forever. So all the issues are free to develop. But we are also saying that if no maintainer has already answered to the issue by providing some guidance, it's a bit risky to try to tackle the issue because maybe it's going to be for nothing. Uh, I think our process isn't that good because it's not really clear in terms of maybe labels for the issues, that it's not ready to be developed yet. Maybe we can improve stuff like this, but I agree that there is a lot of noise like that. So people asking to develop, but also when they develop a PR, something like that, they will send a lot of notification messages. Please review the PR, etc. So yeah, I would love to do that, but unfortunately, on my spare time, I don't have enough time to do everything. So sometimes you have to explain that we are doing this on our spare time. We have some other prioritization for the whole framework because sometimes, okay, something is really interesting, but this is not the right moment. Unfortunately, we cannot tackle this right now. So yeah, it's really tricky when you have a big community like this because you have to say no sometimes, and it's a bit difficult to say no because people are nice. They also use their spare time to create PRs, etc. So
Yeah.
you want to respect that this time too.
Mm-hmm. And does Bootstrap have companies that sponsor it, and there are core teams that's doing it for salary or something, or everything is all the programmers and the maintainers are volunteers?
Everyone is volunteer at Bootstrap. We have some sponsorship, but it's not enough to have someone full time on the project. So
Mm.
sometimes the money is given to some contributors, maintainers, but most of the time it's for free.
Oh, interesting. So how do you manage the is Bootstrap still have a roadmap and uh, planning for the future? How do you manage it? Do you have several people that they are the managers and they write what we are going to do, or how do you manage such a thing that you don't have exactly someone that is a company, he's a leader in a.
There is actually a leader because he was the creator of the frameworks.
Mhm.
He's still there, so he is the main people in the framework. But we are trying to create the roadmap together. We have an infinite to-do list of what we want to add in the framework. So yeah, that's difficult to choose because you have to do non-breaking things when you are creating a front-end framework like Bootstrap, it's almost impossible to do non-breaking things. So yeah, it's difficult to choose between what we are doing in the roadmap. And since everything is done on our spare time, it moves rather slowly, you know. People are expecting a lot of new features, etc., but we don't have enough time to do it, unfortunately. That's
Yeah, of
life,
course.
but it's difficult to make understand to the people that it's not a company behind everything.
Wow, it's very interesting, the situation. I think many times projects like bootstraps that have a lot, many of the user a company itself.
Yeah.
So many times the company, I think like Node.js, I think it's something as that the company have the interest to help the project. They help and they get back because they use it
Mm.
themselves. It's not totally voluntary. So uh, uh, do you, wow, it's does companies ask you to join the project and be more if, uh, with more aspects of managing it and be part of it because I'm sure a lot of companies use Bootstrap and
Yeah, yeah, but
they're interested to be part of it.
no, not really. We have yeah, no, we don't have regular contributors, and we have a lot of issues. That's certain. Sometimes they can be really direct, or it doesn't work for my company. We should fix that. But yeah, even the sponsorship is not really high. I
Okay.
don't remember the numbers, but there is a public open collective where you can find the amount. But in 10 years, I think it's around 30 or $40,000. It's a lot, but it's not enough to have a full-time developers.
Yeah. Uh, wow, interesting. Uh, Yeah, just looking at what we are talking, I opened the Bootstrap
Yeah, I
GitHub.
don't remember the
You
amounts,
have
but
you have
something like that.
80,000 forks, so it's crazy. 80,000 forks. It's interesting. Okay, that I too I really I have the feeling that the open source world is very variant. You have and a lot of things I kind of. Getting to know a new information and I think, wow, it's just amazing that it's working like that. That's something that is so useful. Uh, is working without a business company behind it.
Yeah.
Uh, wow. So, so if I understand correctly, Bootstrap is your main open source project?
Yeah, exactly. This is my
Mm.
main activity as a maintainer. I have some side projects, but most of my time is dedicated. Most of my spare time is dedicated to Bootstrap when I work on open source
Okay.
because
And
it's already a lot.
how long are you connected to this project?
As a contributor since 2021, as a maintainer since 2022, if I remember well,
Ah, okay.
May or June 2022.
So it's not too long, but
No,
I think what I wanted to ask is I think people can get bored eventually. I'm
yeah,
sure that maintaining such a project, it's a lot of hard work. It's not a small project that you can add feature easily and everything is running. It's a much bigger thing. Um,
yeah.
so
You
what is your feeling about yourself and others that you see that it's a hard work to maintain our project?
Yeah, yeah. Indeed, you can see some kind of a pattern in terms of maintenance. You can see people contributing or maintaining the stuff for a few years, and they stop. They stop right away for personal reasons, or because maybe they get bored or frustrated because it moves slowly. But yeah, in the history of the project, you can see some patterns like that. People maintaining the project for 2 or 3 years and they stop. And
Yeah,
I can understand that because sometimes it's a bit frustrating to work like that. You have tons of people expecting stuff from you, basically, and you have to deal with your personal life, your work, open source life balance.
Yeah.
And yeah, at some point, maybe it's too much. So I can understand that people stop working on
And
that.
also, I think that's a misunderstanding that the users don't understand that it's really voluntary, and you can't know. Like
Yeah,
there
yeah,
are
sure.
there are projects that it's not voluntarily, and then you have different of user experience in
Mm.
different project open source projects, uh, and you
Yeah,
know when you have such a big and a good product, people think, oh, they sure have a lot of manpower and people that if it's just amazing, and they don't understand the situation.
yeah, yeah. You know, Bootstrap was created by Twitter in a long time ago. Basically, it started from there and it was open sourced and it became autonomous long time ago. And we still have users saying, "Oh, it's Twitter. You got a lot of money. Please fix that." So that's the
Okay.
experience you can have sometimes because yeah, people can't know. That's for sure.
Okay, and do you have ways to kind of well, you don't have a salary for that and paid for that, but other ways that you can get motivation and reward for the maintainers of a project? Do you find for yourself others?
Uh, for me, I know that this project is used by a ton of people, so the motivation is there because I know it's useful. And if we stop that, it's going to be a problem for a lot of people. So my main motivation is not the salary I could have because it's complex. Otherwise, we should create some related project, paid project, and so on. And that's not really what we want to. We want to stay free.
Mhm.
But my main motivation is because it's really useful, I think, for the users.
Do you have a specific example when you felt that, wow, this I help him this bag or the specific users that you felt very good to help them and to know. I think it's also kind of a problem that us as human we feel better when we help one person is a person and thousands are statistics, in the
Ah,
feeling. So
yeah. Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, yeah. It's more rewarding when you speak to some person having an issue and he or she says, I'm stuck with it for 2 weeks, and you provide an answer, and they are so happy, apparently, because you cannot know through the text. But yeah, it's
wow,
rewarding to be able to help some people like that. And as you said, the mass number is not that a motivation. You know, it's extremely used by a lot of people, but it's hard um, to yeah to have the feeling that yeah 80,000 people are using that. It's too big of a number to know what it represents. So yeah,
yeah,
I agree with what you say.
okay, I understand. And also, in your company, how uh, is accept your activity in the open source? Is it helping the company, helping you? How do you feel about that? It's connected, not connected?
For this project particularly, since we are a fork, we have a direct dependency with Bootstrap. So it's accepted because I'm a maintainer of this project. It means that the stuff that we are doing at Orange can be propagated upstream to Bootstrap. We've already done that. So this is our way to contribute to Bootstrap. It's not money because it's difficult in the company, but it's time. So we manage it like this. But yeah, at Orange, the open source in general is really well accepted because we have, I don't know, 200 or 300 projects in our space on GitHub. So not everything is reusable for other companies, but we have a lot of projects in open source. We have an open source governance as well. So yeah, this is not something new. So it's accepted if you want to contribute, but you have to find
Mm.
the time during your week in your agenda to have some free
Yeah,
time to do that as well. Not always easy.
yeah, of course. But you said that there is a culture of open source inside Orange. It's
Yeah.
not that people looking at you, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah. Some are maybe in the
Okay,
upper management because they don't know about it. But yeah, we have a lot of developers involved in open source. So this is not new. We are also trying to put in place a lot of inner sourcing as well. So it starts to be well known, even the difference between inner source and open source in the company.
nice. Um, Also, in my perspective, I manage Israeli open source community,
Mm.
and uh, do you have any of local activity like meetups or and also the Bootstrap community or any other community? I'm interested about the activities that are not issues and PR, but more uh, of society and community and friends, meetups, talking about technologies and that. Do you have experience with that?
Not for Bootstrap. I don't know if it exists because you have some kind of sub communities. I know there is a Discord with a lot of people. You have some spaces where they discuss about sub product based on Bootstrap, etc. But I'm not aware of meetups dedicated to Bootstrap users in some cities.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they are, but I don't know if we have that somewhere.
And except of Bootstrap that in Paris, or I don't know, the programming community in
Ah,
Paris or
yeah,
things
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. In France, you have a lot of yeah meetups, as you said, based on open source. For example, tomorrow it's linked a little bit to that, but I'm going to open source experience in Paris. So it's 2 days about open source with the big companies and conferences and so on.
Wow.
And you have also small dedicated stuff for the open source. I know in the southwest of France you have some activities like that, etc.
Wow,
But
that's interesting. I must say that, wow, can you give more details? Because I had the feeling that open source projects are more globally scoped, more looking not for local, but if you open a project so anyone in the world can use it. And I didn't find many activity of open source. Like in Israel, I kind of established a community, and around the world, I felt that if you're a programmer, you can connect to a project that you like and you use and start to contribute to it. Um, but something locally of projects, it's interesting. So, what is your experience
uh,
with that?
I think it's more related to the open source world rather than a specific project, you know. That people evolving around open source are all in a city of whatever country, and they gather together to talk about open source, and then they will maybe mention their project, etc. But I don't think you would have something maybe for big projects. I don't know, but really big
Yeah,
projects. But mostly what I saw is rather that open source talking, a lot of open source related to the governance for the companies. Also, this is a pretty
yeah,
big topic that you can see a lot in conferences around open source as well, because companies are interested in how to use open source, less paying paid products, how to contribute to open source, how to provide open source projects, etc. This is a big topic on its own, but yeah, the local meetups are generally, I think, related more globally to the open source world rather than a specific project. Maybe they are for big stuff, but
yeah.
no.
Wow, it's interesting. I had the feeling that well, I was in September and Linux Foundation Europe Open Source Summit. It was in Bilbao in Spain,
Ah, okay,
and
cool.
I had the feeling that the sponsors with company and that most of open source is written by companies that they have their interest that the projects that they develop will be open source, and they're not really, it's open source. The code is open, but it's not really open to contributions. Like what you mentioned in the
Ah, yeah.
stars, the project that you helped. And well, this is what I felt in the summit that so boots not sure I said the right word, but the company had their tables where they talked about their open source activity,
Ah, yeah.
and no one could answer me. Well, the answer was not that their project is not open to contributions. So and what I'm trying uh, to power in Israel, to help in Israel, that programmers will find easy way to contribute to open source and be connected to the contribution of open source. And I went to an international summit, and most of it was the code is open, totally, no problem. You can fork it, you can do it what you want, but to contribute to the source code of the project, it's not really possible. Maybe small bag, small patch, but not to be part of the team or there is no community. Um, so this was my feeling. I'm also only in the start of my journey in the open source world, and I felt so huge. I must tell you something. It's funny. It happened today. I talked with someone that joined or connected to the Israel community, and he's from India, near to Pakistan, something like that. And well, I don't know anything, a lot of thing about the word. And he told me that he speaks Urdu. I didn't know about this language at all because I talked with him about this. Maybe you want to start a community in your place, and what language do you speak? So he told me Urdu. Okay, it's interesting. People around the world have a different culture, and yeah. So I have the feeling that I don't know um, how to find out if project is more like I said, it's a company that only the code is open, but it's not open to contributions, or a code that is really open to the community and is open to contribution. Do you have any thoughts about this separation? And
Yeah, I
uh,
can feel you because yeah, sometimes we use some open source quotes and quotes project where actually yeah it's free. You have the source code, etc. But as you said, when you want to suggest a feature, nobody answers because I suppose that they don't have the manpower to handle really and to maintain an open source project. As you said, maybe for a fixed bug, that's okay. Create an issue, that's okay. But suggesting a feature, if it's not in their roadmap, maybe within the company, it's going to be either rejected or not answered at all. So yeah, it's not really a community when it's like that. It's the source code is shared, it's free, but you're not building a community. And I think that in the most successful product or project, the open source one, there is a community behind all of that. So yeah,
yeah.
maybe they are missing something either because they don't have the manpower, either because it's not in their culture yet. I don't know, but I can
I
see a
think
lot
it's
of
fine. I don't think all the open source should be
yeah, yeah.
open to
Mm,
contribution, but for me, it was kind of something that I was surprised to find
mm,
out, like, because uh, I can say I feel that there is myth around open source because it started like you have the Richard Stallman as a kind of figure, Linux. You say Linux? In Hebrew, we say Linux to the
yeah, yeah,
operating system. I call it Linux, sorry. So uh, people, this is what I thought when I started to connect to open source, that every project that I will find in GitHub that is open source and really with users, so it will have a community. And then I found out that I think the minority have a community. Most of the projects are um, projects that someone have the interest that the code will be open and free, but it's not with a community and doesn't want to get contribution, and it's fine. But um, uh, I- uh, I try to find the projects that do have a community, and uh, uh, it's also a different way to build your project, because if you don't have a community, so you can write it for yourself. You can write the roadmap to yourself and a lot of
Yeah.
things. It's much easier. The documentation doesn't you don't need to explain people how to onboard and contribute to your project. So you do need the manpower to make your project available to contribution. Um, but I do think, yeah, I think for me it was something that when I understood, I kind of felt that now I understand the open source better. Also, yeah, it's just a huge world with a lot of differences, and it takes time to understand where are you, what is going on
Yeah.
in this
A-
space.
and in companies, maybe there's an aspect to linked to the resources because maybe you will have a team starting a project. They are available at this time. Maybe they will switch companies, and then yeah, the project is not dead, but it's not maintained as a community as it was before. So in a company, it's different as a community-based open source project. I think the
Yeah,
projects in the open source world where you see a community are often created by people and not companies.
yeah. Well, it is, and all the connections are interesting. Yeah, I think it's. I'm still thinking about this subject. I don't really have enough knowledge and understanding of the meaning of that, but yeah, it's interesting. I think it's kind of a challenge in the open source methodology that. Eventually, it takes time. I will tell you, I think it's a funny thing that happened to me in Israel. I look at it as funny that eventually it didn't happen, but there was an idea that I will teach a course of how to contribute to open source to fund a project and do things. And it costs money because it takes me time, and I can do it for free. And then I wrote about it in Twitter, and then people wrote me, how can you take money for open source project? And I said, what do you want from me? I asked them, is a mathematics teacher can take money because he doesn't own the mathematics? What do you want from me? And
Yeah, yeah, I get the feeling because I got a side project talking about open source too, and I was wondering if some features could be paid or whatever. And I saw a lot of things on this topic on X, Twitter, or Mastodon, etc. And I saw exactly the same answers. You provide something for the open source world, it should be free. Not entirely sure because it takes time to have quality. I'm sure that maybe people will be able to provide something for free, but not everybody can have the luxury of giving time
yeah,
and not having money in exchange of their knowledge. I understand the open source
yeah.
philosophy,
So,
but
so
sometimes it's a bit extreme, in my opinion.
it wasn't my philosophy. It's people told me that I
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah, yeah,
take
sure,
money
sure.
for this.
Yeah, yeah,
It
sure.
wasn't mine. Yeah, but what I wanted to say is that it is a challenge because
Mm,
it also because people told me that, so I said, "Oh, they're so wrong. I want to check it." And then I found out that uh, in the 90s, I read something about open source and money, and it's written in a license or something that you can sell copies of your code. The code should be open, but you can sell copies of that. And then I didn't understand what am I reading. If the code is open, what is to sell copies of your code? But then I understand it was written before the internet, and it
yeah,
was
yeah.
sold on discs. So like books, you need to let anyone to read your book, but not anyone can print it and sell it. But wow, I really. First of all, it's funny to see how the technology changed and words don't have the same meaning, but yeah, it still shows you that open source is not free of money. It's just the source code should be opened, and but eventually when we have the internet, so if your code is open, it's really hard to find a way how to uh, manage it and have the money to or the resources to maintain it. It takes time. Time is something that's worth. Yeah. So it's kind of a challenge that I don't have a good answer for it.
Mm.
As you said, in Bootstrap, you have a lot of work. I think in every project, and then if it is a project of a company, it has its own. Maybe it has the resources, but it has its own challenging aspects. Um, so, okay, it's a good question. I don't have an answer. How we should, what is the future of the open source world, and how can it be connected to money and resources? Um, Interesting. Do you have any topics that you think that, or stories that you, okay, let's try to finish with that. Do you have an interesting story that you remember from your experience with open source? Something special? I don't know.
Let me think. Um, I don't have
A
anything in
good
my
feeling
mind
that you
right now.
had sometimes that you were connected to open source project and you feel, oh wow, that was good, like good great achievement or something like that.
Uh, Recently, it was really connecting to the Astro community. When I when I've been to the Discord channel, see how they interact with each other, how it is built, how it is managed, the place that the contributors have, etc. For me, it's really refreshing in terms of how you can handle community. I think this is the best community I've seen so far.
Wow,
I
nice.
don't know a lot of communities around
Okay,
open source, but yeah, I was really surprised by how they handle things and how we handle things in Bootstrap. It's totally different, and I was amazed to see how they are starting their project. It's rather new, but it's really powerful, I think.
interesting. But still, I think that maybe they have less users and less noise, and it's interesting. Where
Yeah, that's possible, but yeah, let's see how it evolves with more customers, more users, more people in the community.
yeah,
But I hope they will continue to work like that, because I think it's really powerful, and you feel really motivated when you contribute to this project, because you feel part of something, not I would
hmm,
say not a family, but a real community, and you're
yeah.
moving forward with everyone.
Wow, that's nice.
Mm.
Good to hear. So yeah, I think it was a nice and very smart conversation. I really liked it. I think I learned new things. Um, um, do you have anything to say about how you see your future in open source? Um,
Yeah, on my side, I try to provide resources as well to help people understanding and interacting with the open source world, because I can see via Bootstrap that not everybody has the same knowledge regarding open source, and that's normal. So maybe provide some tools for maintainers, stuff like that. So this is mostly a side project for me, and obviously continuing working on Bootstrap for the
mhm,
moment, because I really like that. So yeah, that's the two aspects of my future contributions to the open source
nice.
world.
So last question. Why would you recommend to a programmer to try to connect to the open source world? What's the benefits you
Um,
get from it?
Yeah, you get a lot of benefits, because you're talking with other people about some technical stuff, mostly technical, and you learn a lot just sometimes by reading the code or suggesting something and have feedback on what you're suggesting. So that's really interesting, because you enhance your skills. really quickly when you contribute smartly to open source project, but you can also learn when you create a project yourself. That's a different feeling. That's going to be different interaction. But if you have the chance, I think, to create a project and have some users and a beginning of a community, maybe not hundreds and hundreds of people, but even when you start and you have 10 people really believing in your project, that's already really cool. You're going to have some interactions, technical and human, that are really interesting. So I think, yeah, it's worth
nice.
trying to get into the open source world just for that. Even if it doesn't work, we don't care.
Yeah. You don't have risk when you
Yeah, exactly. You don't
it's
risk anything.
you maybe you didn't use your time the most efficient
Ah,
way, and
yeah.
you try to, but this is a but you don't risk your money or really big things.
Mm.
And I just about what you said, I think to open your private open source project, I think it's better after you contribute to other project and you kind of understand the culture and how it works.
Yeah, can
To try
be.
to, if you will try to start with it at the beginning, just open your own project, you may do mistakes that you don't understand that you're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe it's easier when you have, a small tool doing something really specific. You put it online and it's not, it can be easy to maintain. You don't have a lot of interactions and so on. If you start something big, yeah, it's more difficult, and maybe have more knowledge on the open source world will help.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for this conversation. I hope
Thanks a
the
lot.
listener will like it too. And have a good night.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.
Bye.